Anyway, Jessie wants to say something, so I'll quit interrupting her and let her go.
Oh no, you're
So,
good.
yeah.
I want to talk about the calendar. Now we have the calendar from Enoch, which is fabulous. We have the Sabbath. Um, but on that calendar, you can see when does the year start? It starts the first on the first month. Okay, and there is a divider. You have the null day and you have a divider of every 30 days. There's divisions. Even though it is circular, it's still circular. We go from one year to the next year. Um, so that all makes sense to me. But I am questioning when I looked in Leviticus 25 from 3 to 10. Um, and I'm questioning the that we do not have the 50th day. Um, we know that it's circular, but when does the day start? When does the year start? It starts in the beginning, not on atonement. Yes, the Jubilee, when everybody's set free, is on atonement. But if you have a land Sabbath for on the seventh year, if you start it on the sixth year on atonement, you're going to miss out on some of that year. And it says the seventh year is to be a rest. So to start, and I believe it's a lot of the Jewish thoughts in our head that keep with us. And when we see that, that's the Jubilee. Yes, when you come to the seventh, but it specifically states 49 years and then the 50th year. Now, if you do the like we're leading into all blending in together, where is your 49 years? Because it's going to come on year number one. There's no clear 49. And I just feel like you know uh I don't know. Can someone read that? Because
Uh, what do you want me to
um
read?
the, Leviticus 25, 3 to 10. Because it
Okay.
specifically says, and I'm thinking that we're, you know, we're if you if you are going to have a rest for one complete year, what is one complete year? Well, we have what one complete year is in Enoch on our regular calendar. We have one whole year, and it starts on the first. And if you do it from the 10th to the 10th, you're cutting off some of that rest time that is supposed to be on the Sabbath. So
Well,
that's what I saw. And
I'll read it and
thank
then
you.
we can discuss. How about that?
I'm sorry, I didn't know I was going to talk
Okay.
today.
Okay. Leviticus 25, verse 3, it says, 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather its fruit. But in the seventh year there shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest for the land. So land Sabbath, or there's another word, a Sabbath to Yah. You shall neither sow your field nor prune your vineyard. What grows of its own accord of the harvest you shall not reap or gather the grapes of your untended vine, for it is a year of rest for the land. And the Sabbath produce of the land shall be for food for you, for your male and female servants, your hired man, and your stranger who dwells with you. For your livestock and the beasts that are in your land, all its produce shall be for food. And you shall count 7 Sabbaths of years for yourself, 7 times 7 years, and the time of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be to you 49 years. Then you shall cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the seventh month. On the day of atonement you shall make the trumpet to sound throughout all your land, And you shall consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout all the land and to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you, and each of you shall return to his possession, and each of you shall return to his family. And that's again, while we're on this subject, why I think Yahusha's return is immovable, because he began his ministry on the Day of Atonement, proclaiming liberty, Isaiah 61, and then that's when Israel comes back to their land from captivity, and that is the definition of the Jubilee year.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So, okay, so I think what Jesse is saying, and Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong, is you think that these land Sabbath years have to follow a year, as in starting in the spring.
Yes, because it does not say to start this land Sabbath on atonement. Um, it says 1 year. And what consists of 1 year?
Well, okay, Christina, do you want to say something?
Okay, yes, I do.
Okay.
The reason that the year is called out at Yom Kippur is the land Sabbath is called out on that day because if they did not do that, they would go out and they would start planting. So then by the time it came into the spring, you would have wasted crops. It would be a complete waste because they could not harvest all of it. So from Yom Kippur to Yom Kippur is 1 year. It is 1 year. And then
Yeah,
it
kind
is
of like
called
your
out again.
birthday. Your
Yes.
birthday doesn't increment until the day and the month of your birth, not the beginning of the year. But
So,
I think verse 3 homes in on it. 6 years you shall sow. So
Yep.
the sowing occurs after the fall
well,
holy
most
days.
people sow in the spring, not in
But
the fall.
barley is sown in the winter. That's why it is
Yeah,
called
you do
out
have some
in the
winter
fall.
crops.
But all of our, it's we're all of the feasts that we celebrate are based around the grain, you
The
know.
barley, right. And we can't have the uh and on the land Sabbath, we cannot do that. We're not allowed to harvest.
Can I
Okay, can
sh
you think of a scripture? Because I don't know. I don't know any scriptures that say we should start the year on atonement. Now Jubilee, that's when you blow the horn. It's atonement. It is a Jubilee year. The 50th year is a Jubilee year. From the beginning of the 50th year to the end of the 50th year. And you blow the horn on the seventh month on the 10th day. I just need to find out where there is a verse that says you start the year, all the other years you start on the first month. Where does it say you start on the seventh month, on the seventh year?
well,
That's
So
where I'm
it's
very
not
confused.
it's not
there's
starting.
a difference between the land
Harvest
year
calendar.
and then our actual year that we go from the first through. That year still is intact. It's the land that's different. I only
Because
I
of, yeah,
like
because of the
as
planting and harvesting.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
in
I
the
get what you're
my
saying, but I would like to have some kind of a verse to make to make sense of it, like a verse someplace I,
You're looking for a verse that says to
that
start
that
it.
says that we should start the Sabbath land rest on the
So
seventh.
25, 9, and 10 don't do it for you?
No.
Okay, I think I might have one. And Kimberly, I think this is what I interrupted you. I'm sorry. But so basically unleavened bread, um, starting at first fruits, which is tomorrow, is a harvest. So Pentecost is a harvest, and the ingathering at the end is the large harvest, meaning tabernacles. And then once that is over, right, then is when they do their sowing, start the sowing process for the next year, right?
The other thing that they do, and I'm just speaking from a farming family, is that my grandfather used to prep his land in the fall for the next year. So they wouldn't do that. So it would have to be cut off at Yom Kippur at the end. So they didn't prep the land. If they did that, which I imagine they did, which barley's sown, in the fall. But even as a regular farmer, which he didn't do barley, he would prep it. Maybe he was just ahead of the whatever, but he would prep it and let it settle. It would be loose then in the spring when he went through to plant. I mean, it would settle, but it wouldn't be hard like, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that made sense to me. Is it just coming from a farming family?
And Linda, I wonder, can you show me where is the 50th year on there? Because I really don't see
Yeah.
it.
So what you were talking about too in saying how we have it is the seventh year of rest where you would be harvesting is represented here. So it is in the seventh year. But if you start it here in the fall, so you don't plant anything here, and you don't sow anything here, you can start planting here so you can gather the rest of these 6 years and then the whole thing starts all over. So the actual land Sabbath does begin at the end of the sixth year, travels over into the beginning of the seventh, and then the Jubilee is actually the end of the seventh. And then we do not sow on the first.
And see, does it say anywhere that we do not sow on the first year?
Well, it's the seventh year is when it begins. We don't plant, so we can't sow. Like if you don't plant, there's nothing to sow.
But I think here it is in scripture, and we can work through the calendar. If you move ahead in Leviticus 25, um, so if you start in verse 20, well, verse 20, it says, "And if you say, What shall we eat in the seventh year, since we shall not sow nor gather in our produce?" And then Yah says, verse 21, "Then I will command my blessing on you in the sixth year." In other words, in the 6 year part when you can gather, and it will bring forth produce enough for 3 years. And why 3 years? Because this would include the Jubilee, right? "And you shall sow in the eighth year." There is no eighth year, but the first becomes the eighth. So toward the end of the first year, when they sow, you can sow again, right? It's wrapped to the first year, the eighth year.
So those 3 years are the sixth year, the seventh year, and the first year.
Right. Now, y'all called it the eighth, but it's just like if you keep counting for Pentecost, it's the day after the Sabbath or the eighth day. But that's in essence the first day of the next week, just like that. This is in essence the first year of the next Jubilee cycle.
And it's also just like connecting the null day to the week of creation. The first Sabbath is the eighth day.
There you go.
Hmm.
So I guess what we're trying to say, Jesse, we are completely with you. The calendar years, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, do start in spring. But the sowing and the reaping and all that, the earth cycle of producing fruits is not on our yearly calendar cycle. It's more of the fall. Basically, the fall when you gather in, and then after, like Kimberly was saying, they prepare the ground for the next year.
And
So
so
it was on a different cycle.
So I know this is actually what is this? What jubilees are these? This is 123 and 124. Is that what we're looking at here? Yeah. So this,
Yeah.
but pretend this is year one, okay? Or creation week one. You Adam wasn't created until the sixth day, so he was doubly blessed here. And then he, like from all these years, there's crops, and then he rested here, and then he's able to start. And so when you come here, it's the 49th to the 50th, and this is where the sowing would begin in the 50th. Or where it doesn't begin, like it's a jubilee, so you don't, it's a rest there.
Yeah, they couldn't have planted barley in spring of the year because it
That's
wouldn't
what it
have
came
had
up.
it wouldn't have had time to make it to first fruits. So it had to be planted in the winter.
And there would not be a gap between the land rusts. There would never be a gap in between it. So if you were trying to say that um that uh sorry guys.
Atonement.
Yeah, yeah, you can't do that because you would have a 6 month gap in year 2028 if it was actually the land Sabbath beginning at the beginning of the year to the end. You can't do that because it clearly says that the Jubilee year begins in the fall.
The
It's just
10th
like the
day of the
crop, it
seventh month.
follows it. Right,
Yeah.
right.
And so the land Sabbath has to begin the same day as the Jubilee, or you have that gap. It's just a solid 2 years of no planting, no sowing, no reaping.
And
Nope.
and Jesse, I don't know if this will help you, but like how I was suggesting in our last study, where this specific verse here, I think it should be really two verses. If you combine 9 and 10 and there's no breath in between it, thou shalt cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the seventh month. There's no question what we're talking about here, on the day of atonement. Ye shall make the trumpet sound throughout your land, and shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you. From that moment of the blowing of the trumpet on the Day of Atonement, that's it right there.
And we do give the Jews a hard time because they call, it's wrong. They call trumpets Rosh Hashanah, which means head of the year. I'd have a little more respect for them if they called the Day of Atonement
Right.
Rosh
And
Hashanah.
that's what made me think, oh, this is wrong.
Yeah, I hear
So
what you're saying, Jess.
I would say, yes, the calendar, the New Year's all operate on spring, but the agrarian, the farming, the farmer's almanac, so to speak, Yah's farmer's almanac counts years from the 10th day of the seventh month.
And the 50th year, we, like it, like we're okay, here's the 49 years here where we're doing all of our feasts, all of our spring feasts, they begin, like you say, Jesse, they begin at the beginning of the year. So this year here, this is the 50th year of all those harvest feasts that we are celebrating during this time. That's in the 50th year.
Right. And you have to imagine too that Father makes it clear during those 2 years, you are allowed to go out and eat anything that has voluntarily grown up from the ground. You're just not allowed to harvest it. You take what you need for that meal and then you can eat that. And I would imagine it goes for the same thing when it comes to the first fruits of a harvest. They just go out there, get what they need for that sheaf to wave, and that's it. They're basically waving a volunteer that has come up. So if you notice when you garden or when you do farming, You do have volunteers that come up. There are always seeds that get left behind unless you're an extremely great gleaner. But you do have volunteers that come up even during the time of the land rust. You're just not allowed to harvest any of it.
You can eat it. You just don't
Yeah.
go out there with your machinery, your big buckets, your tractors, your horses, ox. Yeah,
So
yeah,
can I suggest something right now, you guys? Oh,
sure.
so when who's just going through the field and they're eating on the Sabbath in the uh they get
You're wondering if
accused.
it's a land Sabbath?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the only time that could be would be the the 26th year. Year 26 is what I'm saying.
That would put him in his first year of ministry, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't gather you there it's not a Sabbath. Okay. The Sabbath, you're not allowed to prepare, like go out into the field and bring it into your house. But on a lamb Sabbath, you're not allowed to harvest it either. You got to eat it in the field, right?
I think you can bring it in the house.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think you
But
can bring it in the
Well,
house.
old
And I
grain
think,
you could have, right?
yeah.
you take what you need to feed your family. You take no more.
Oh,
You
okay.
take
I see what
just
you're
what you
saying.
need.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
You don't
So,
reap.
right.
In
So
Yeah.
other
they're
words,
not
you don't.
re either way. Like that could be, right?
It could be because that year was a land Sabbath.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know when you're reaping like beans or something, you want to pick and make sure you pick all the beans because the more you pick, the more they grow. So I think what he's saying is, just take what you can eat.
Right. You don't need to eat it in the field, but don't take, it's
Yeah,
just like manna. You would take what you need and you eat that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that would actually have to be year 26 AD
Yes.
then.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The reason I think it was land Sabbath year is because when he started his ministry, he stood up on, I believe it was the Day of Atonement in Luke 4, because what he spoke pointed back to the year of liberty, which proclaim liberty, and that is Leviticus 25, verse 10. So that proclaiming liberty, which was the scripture he was talking about there, I do believe that he started his ministry on the land
Okay.
Sabbath.
Well, I need to correct myself then because I kind of want to have this conversation offline. But if he didn't start his ministry until atonement, the land Sabbath is over at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, but it's still the Day of Atonement. And that is when he's bringing his captives back, you
Yeah.
know.
No, I am saying I was suggesting that when they were walking through the field and they get accused, that could have been during a land Sabbath. But if his ministry didn't start until atonement, the land Sabbath would be over because it's not celebrated the
Well,
second half of the
I
Sabbath.
don't have my priestly order, but what was year 26? Wasn't that
Uh,
the seventh year?
it's the seventh year, so it's the first.
Okay.
It's like right here, right here.
Okay, so it just ended.
It just ended, right? So
Yeah,
we can look into. We'll study that a little later.
yeah. And I'm assuming he talked during the day.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, yeah. So, but I hear what you're saying. When they were walking through the fields, it wouldn't have been anymore. Yeah, I hear you. Okay. So, Jesse, did we help or did we?
Yes, you did.
We make it worse.
So, yeah. So
I was thinking of springtime crops.
yeah,
That's the only thing I do.
yeah. But the farmers, the
Yeah,
major farmers, they operate. And he even talks about the large gathering in the fall, you
yeah.
know.
And I don't plant wheat or barley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it really is the 50th year, like Linda pointed out. If you calibrate your mind to the harvest calendar or year start, which is different than the true calendar of the beginning of
And I
it.
wanted to reject that because of the juice too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they did try to spin it that the
Yeah.
calendar could go there too.
Just like
But
they do with atonement. All Sabbaths start on the evening, you know.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay, I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they even got it wrong. They call Rosh Hashanah trumpets, which is 7-1. That's not even.
You know.
It's just such a mess. But this is y'all's. It is a calendar, but it's a agrarian calendar to the produce of the earth, right?
And just like
It,
a visual for Jesse, what you were just saying, they got it reversed when they start. It's basically like, this represents the night before, right? And then this
yeah,
is literally the day after the equinox where it's exactly cut in half. You know what I mean? So, but this to us, this is the day, the first half, and then the night follows. But
right.
our instructions for the Sabbath, it starts at the end of the 49th, wraps around to the 50th.
Now run that
That's
by
the
me again.
tab.
Okay, so like Jesse's last
Like the
point,
day and night part. I didn't
exactly.
quite
That's
follow
all I'm
that. But
saying. It's like reversing the
It's
beginning and the
divided.
end.
Yeah. I see that.
Because for the Jews, if their year starts, it's basically like their year starts in the night and then the day follows.
Yeah.
But our year starts in the day and then the night follows. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else, but it makes sense to me.
It made sense to me.
so what
I
you're
see what you're
saying
saying.
is that the Jews are following the the atonement stuff.
It's like night. It's like night. That's kind of what I'm
Right,
saying.
right,
It's like they're celebrating their year is the night portion. That's like our winter.
right,
Night represents winter and fall, and then spring and summer is day. And
right.
it's kind of what I'm trying to. There's probably a
Yes,
much better way to explain it, but I'm doing the
yeah. I
best.
see what you're saying. Their Rosh Hashanah head of the year
Yeah,
is, and that's where they're getting the darkness first, I guess.
yeah. And we start where the children of light. That's where we start.
Right, right. Yeah, which is the true calendar.
So I was just like, well, that principle took me to this whole thing. So
Yeah. If you think about it, oh, yeah, and I probably shouldn't say this, it might confuse people, but so the fruit of the earth, this is earthly, right? This is physical, earthly, the land Sabbath, the Day of Atonement, Jubilees, right? So Yah calls us out of the earth to be spiritual, to be heavenly. Let light lead you, not darkness. Kind of a interesting way to look at it, but the earth yields its fruit starting in fall through to the spring, right? I mean, you have to start the process. So he called us out of the world, right? Follow it. You need to follow the light. But
So there's an earth calendar and a spiritual calendar.
there you go. That's what
yeah.
I'm trying to say. Yes. And we need to understand the earthly calendar and obey it as Yah, but don't confuse that calendar with his true holy days spiritual calendar, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I get that.
Anyway, I hope all this helped a little bit with because yes, it gets very confusing, especially when I first learned that the land Sabbath started on the Day of Atonement in year 6. That kind of blew my mind, but it does. So. it is any questions? Does that make sense with everybody?
I have a question for you. So if we just started gardening last year, so it was like our first year, but that doesn't fall like that, right? Or it does it? I mean, the time of year that the earthly calendar starts is the same, but for us, we just started gardening
You follow
again.
Yah's calendar, Kimberly. It's okay. You want to be on sync with him.
Right.
Whenever you start, that does not matter. Like you keep your land Sabbath with him.
Sweet. Thank you.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
Because based on where you live, right, things may shift. But of course, this was Jerusalem time, which I think where we live is roughly in the same latitude. But yeah, the further north or the further south, your planning and all that times might change. But ultimately, the whole world is going to follow his land Sabbath, however that rolls out. So I completely agree. You just do what Yah says, and he'll bless it, and you'll have plenty of food.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess we've gone past time.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to save Genesis 17 for another day.
Hey, but isn't that what the video was about, right?
I
Or
think
was
so.
It
Maybe,
was. It was. So you know what,
okay,
Christina, you know what? We can discuss it next week, but I'm going to release the recording and then we can have like a follow-up discussion next week about that.
awesome.
Okay.
all
Okay.
right, y'all. See y'all soon.
All
Shabbat
right,
shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.